Hello, everybody. My name is Nizar Habash, and I'll be talking to you today about the Palisra Project, Art for the One State. The Palisra Project is an artistic exploration of a one-state solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The two-state solution and even some flavors of the binational one-state solution pragmatically avoid consolidating the conflicting narratives of Israelis and Palestinians. In contrast, the Palisra Project goes beyond imagining a unified narrative to constructing a shared identity that transcends the strong, independent, and rich Israeli and Palestinian identities. I observed many years ago that most discussions of solutions to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict are racially oriented, especially in contrast to the emotionally driven causes of the conflict. Even for the naively ideal amongst us, there was a gap. And as an artist, I wanted to go there and explore that space of good emotion solution, if you may, something beyond the generic love of humanity and peace and justice for all, to specific symbolisms of this one state that will connect to me as a citizen. Flag colors that make me proud, a national anthem that makes me cry. The soul of the solution was missing, and I wanted to create one. And this was the beginning of a very wonderful journey of learning and discovery of both sides of the conflict and of myself. My artistic approach was to research and identify shared aspects of the two cultures and consider ways of consolidating differences so that at once the final piece is understandable in content and aesthetically appealing in form, not too opaque, not too simplified than needed, with emergent beauty that does not exist in the components that inspired it. Some pieces, particularly those related to the constructed language that merges Arabic and Hebrew, took years of work. Others came in flashes of genius or dreams. I should also mention that the Palisra project is completely independently funded by the artist, myself, and is not affiliated with any political group or movement. That said, no art is apolitical. The goal of this project is to open people's mind to imagine new possibilities of peaceful coexistence and to make the idea of living together less scary and even more beautiful and inviting. Of course, since the work may be perceived as threatening to two very long and strong indoctrination traditions, I expect the art pieces at once to amuse and offend, entice and incite, and confuse yet enchant by form and content. At least that's what I hope. So next, I'm gonna go through some pieces and explain how they came about, describing at times the seed and the evolution of the ideas, and how they came to be, and what were the reasons that I made behind selecting them. This presentation is about work in progress. There are also more pieces on the Palisra website and the Facebook page. So let's start. First is what's in a name, or the name. So we're working with two names here, Palestine and Israel, and there are many different possible ways we can arrange the letters and the phonetic sounds to generate something potentially new. Some things are more obvious than others. The observation I went with was something that highlights the fact that there is an overlapping of sound, which is the S sound that I wanted to highlight, and that's how I got the name Palisra. That's the only ordering that allows me to combine the S sound from both countries' names. Interestingly, many Westerners immediately associate this with the name Palestra for some reason, and but I take that as a very positive connotation. In fact, so Palestra turned out to be the daughter of Hermes in Greek mythology, and is credited with inventing the art of wrestling during the times of peace. Well, that's very apt. She's also a skilled wrestler with androgynous looks and boyish ways. I find that also kind of inspiring, the fact that I'm combining elements. So here it's also androgynous, nature of the association. I find that complementary, in fact, and not scary, although it's not necessary at all. Now contrast this with one of the names that I often hear about, people ask me about, is the name Israel, which was proposed by Gaddafi many years ago for the one-state solution. Unfortunately, this name evokes the word for cancer or saratan in both Arabic and Hebrew, and I suspect this was intentional to make sure that the idea is kind of not what he was really pushing for. But anyway, it was not something that I wanted to be associated with the name of an art project that has positive feelings and inspirations associated with it. Next, I'll talk about the design of the flags of the state of Palisra. So again, here we start with the basic elements. We have these two flags with beautiful colors that have only the shared color white. The Palestinian flag has the four colors of Arab nationalism, and the Israeli flag is only blue and white, and it's inspired from the traditional Jewish prayer shawls and the Star of David, of course. A very simple way of doing combination of the thematic elements, is to combine the shapes with the colors and alternate them, thus creating something kind of interesting but shallow. This usually kind of gets people immediately reacting. Other ways would be to combine the elements by just kind of overlaying multiples of them together, and this has a strong feel of like a South African flag to it. I find this a bit busy, and I don't like the blue on black. I find it to be a bit too hard to distinguish. But this the nine-pointed star was kind of an interesting way of actually combining these elements. The three triangles that appeared, the two triangles of the Star of David and the one triangle that appears in the Palestinian flag, that was kind of an interesting way of combining them together, kind of creating a new star. Now we can also go through the deconstructionist path, just take all these flags, tear them apart, and then just try to combine them in new ways. And as you can imagine, there's many different ways that you can combine them. This particular one that I show here in the video was one of the first that I tried, and I was kind of inspired to think of it, or at least to kind of, it inspired me to think in terms of reassigning new symbolism here. So now green is the land, blue is the sky, red in an upside down form looks like an upside down, blood drop, so it's the end of bloodshed. It also evokes the symbol that was used by the Nazis to mark all the unwanted or the undesirables, the upside down triangle. And here it would be the place for all the undesirables, so the Holy Land can be the place that's a sanctuary for them. White again is peace. The problem with this particular idea is that the blue and the green also have strong associations today with the Israeli and the Palestinian groups respectively. Many different groups that talk about one state or two state use these two colors to mark the two groups, and having them separated with a big white a stripe in the middle can be seen as peace between, but we have two separate places, or a wall that separates the two. Either way, it did not seem to be fitting of a one-state idea, so I quickly abandoned it. Further deconstructionist ideas, there are lots of them. I only show you some here. If you go to my website, you'll see even many more other kind of intermediate designs. The final design that I settled on is the one that you see here, and this particular flag that looks, slightly resembling the American flag, some aspects of it, not all. It has a white background with blue and green stripes that represent both the Jewish, Israeli, and Palestinian Arab heritage. However, they are alternating, indicating or symbolizing mixed communities. And then, of course, the Palisra star, the Star of David with the Palestinian triangle coming together, generating a new kind of a symbol here that we did not have before. Still, the red triangle is upside down, symbolizing the end of bloodshed and carrying out other meanings. So this is the current flag that I have basically adopted for the website and also for the Facebook page. Okay, now among the civil symbols that I created a day. We need a day, of course, a national day, and that's 29th of November is Palisra Day. It's in response to the November 29, 1947 date in which the United Nations adopted the partition plan for Palestine. So this is now reinterpreted as the No Partition Day, and this meme that I show here on the screen I've used on my website on that day to kind of commemorate it. Other civil symbols would include the money. You have to have money, and zahava or zahaba is the monetary unit of Palisra. It comes from the Arabic dhahab and the Hebrew zahab, meaning gold, so it's like a gilda. And so here I have the 5 zahava note, which has in it a mosaic background that has elements that looks Arabesque, but also that has Star of David and 8-pointed stars kind of intermingling together beautifully. The symbol of the hand with the eye, or the khamsa, which also means 5 in Arabic and Hebrew. This is a symbol that's used to ward evil, the evil eye. It has an eye that wards the evil eye, and it seemed just kind of an apt symbol to use for the 5 money note. So you can always have your protection handy in your wallet. I also did a design for a coin, and this was a little bit kind of going further, maybe pushing the boundary, going to Canaanite goddess inspired theme. So perhaps this won't catch on even more or less than other pieces, but I thought I had to kind of refer to the more ancient culture, the land of Canaan that we all share. Other example of pieces of art here is the stamp, a Palisra stamp with pomegranates on it, which are also, of course, considered very positive symbols for fertility in both the Jewish and Arab cultures. And there's a poster about visiting Palisra, and this kind of is adapted from a famous Zionist poster from the days when trying to encourage Jewish immigration to Palestine. It's called Visit Palestine, and here was reused again to be as Visit Palisra. Now, I do kind of push my luck, and I go to religion also a little bit, and here there are some pieces that kind of start touching on religious symbolism a little bit, maybe religious and nationalist. The first one is called the kupiya, which is a mix of a kippah or a yarmulke, which is the skull cap that Jewish men wear, and a kufiya, which is the headscarf that is traditionally worn by men also, but that made famous by Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. This was actually the first piece that I made. I actually have the physical piece created, and it was part of a reaction to how people associate very strong meaning to the design and the shape of this head dress. Partly in the West Bank, many Palestinian kids have never seen anybody wearing yarmulke who was not a soldier or a settler, so their associations of these pieces of clothing are very negative because these are the only people that they know who wear this. And here I wanted to kind of try to create a mix that kind of challenges some of these perceptions, but create something that is also aesthetically pleasing. Another piece is a Muslim mezuzah. So a mezuzah is a doorpost prayer that practicing Jews have on the side of the doors of their homes, and it includes in it a prayer called the Shema prayer that says, "Listen, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one." And I got a in this piece, I have a mezuzah that's transparent, that has in it a scroll from the Quran, from the first verse of the Surah of Fidelity, that says, "Proclaim or say, He is God, the one and only." Then this was one of those pieces that kind of just happened. I like this piece a lot. The glittering part, perhaps. It's I've called it Menorah Allah, and it's it's a menorah with the flames coming out of it, spelling the word Allah in Arabic. So Allah Nur is light, God is light, and the Nur in menorah actually evokes the meaning of light also. So this seemed like a very nice kind of combination of these two elements. And finally, last Passover, we put a combination of matzah bread with za'atar, which is a thyme-based spice mixed with olive oil, and was actually quite enjoyable. Za'atar is a daily staple for Palestinians. It's something that they most breakfast tables must have, and here, and it's often, at least among the other Arabs, associate za'atar strongly with Palestinians. So this seemed kind of an interesting combination. So next I'll talk to you about the constructed language that I created for Palisra, calling it Semitish or Semiti. It's a constructed language, a sort of Arabic Hebrew Esperanto, that also has some of the same inspirations of the design of Esperanto to create a new language that transcends the other languages, or kind of get rid of the differences in linguistic forms that may divide people by creating something that brings them together. So as in the design of Semitish, I went generally for a theme of simplification. So in terms of the phonology, I simplified the phonological set to be the intersection of both Arabic and Hebrew, dropped emphatics from Arabic, dropped the different allophones, the so-called beget kefet consonants in Hebrew, and generally had a very softer pronunciation overall. So the infamous Semitic sound is actually now only kept in words where both Arabic and Hebrew actually have the same word, like the word for brother is but almost everywhere else it's kind of removed and turned into a soft when possible. Also, in the early days of working on Palisra, I experimented a little bit with constructing a new merged alphabet, of which I show you some symbols of here. This seemed kind of fun to do, and made me think about the language a bit more. But it's okay. I'm not as excited about it as other things, although I think kind of from a creative point of view, it was actually quite challenging to do. I currently primarily use the Roman script, and I'm kind of interested in possibilities of defining Arabic and Hebrew script ways of writing Semitish also. Now, in terms of the grammar, I use a very simplified version of Arabic and Hebrew. No large conjugation tables, no case endings, etc. It's a much simpler language than both. And there are many shared elements that were very easy to keep, like equational sentences. And I use here English examples with English translations. So saying John tall, meaning John is tall, construct state nouns like house Mary means house of Mary, and the noun adjective order is noun followed by adjective, like house big is big house. There are also some fused grammatical elements. For example, the most common one, in fact, is the definite article hal, which is a combination of ha and el from Hebrew and Arabic respectively. Now, in terms of the words in Semitish, I currently have a dictionary of about 2,000 entries that I constructed using Hebrew, Arabic dictionaries, Arabic English dictionaries, and Hebrew-English dictionaries, and I use some computational models to propose different ways of linking some of these entries, given the simplification and the phonology that I had done. And then I got a very long list of pairs that I went through carefully over a long period of time, and to generate the current set that I have. So the dictionary is an English Semiti dictionary and also a Semiti English dictionary, and the Arabic and the Hebrew are indicated primarily to tell me the origin. It's in many places there's no one-to-one anymore, because I had to have a bit of freedom here in kind of constructing the lexical semantics. So I'll go through some of the words, and these are memes from my State of Palisra Facebook page, which I encourage you to go and look at. There's a lot of them there, and this is just a few that highlight certain things. As you can see, I go for very light themes and kind of fun stuff. So in some cases, the words are shared. Semitish words maybe already in both Arabic and Hebrew. And I should say here a word that when I say Arabic and Hebrew, sometimes I don't mean exactly, So Arabic is Palestinian Arabic, or it could also be sometimes Egyptian Arabic, or it could be classical Arabic, modern standard, Quranic. All is good by me. Same for Hebrew. It could be biblical Hebrew. It could be, Hebrew with Mizrahi pronunciation or Ashkenazi pronunciation. Whatever actually works that allows me to make a link, I will go for it. I've even gone in some cases and used Yiddish words when I found a very good reason for it, and I'll show you an example later. It doesn't happen that often though. So this word kayf, meaning fun, commonly used in Israeli Hebrew, is actually from the Arabic, meaning fun. Now, nana is a very simple word, has a very simple pronunciation. It's one of those very easy, straightforward words used to include in Semitish. Malak and malach is a bit, they're shared clearly, but they have a slightly modified phonology when they go into Semitish. Same with salam and shalom, becomes salom. Again, more modifications that are happening here. I'm kind of, as you see, I'm increasing the number of the differences that happen when I'm combining things. So the word for hub and the word for ahaba becomes ahaba for love, and the word for Allah and Elohim, God, becomes Allahim. There are cases of words where it wasn't really that easy to combine them. For example, the word for spring is Rabia and Aviv, and the word for summer is Saif and Kayets, and it wasn't very hard to find actually something that is shared among them. I went with Abib because Abib, from the name of the city Tel Aviv, is recognizable to Arabic speakers, and Saif would just be, unfortunately, it's not as strongly recognizable on the Hebrew side. But the equivalent of qaid does exist for kites in Arabic, but it's a very classical word that most people would not immediately think of, and it was just seemed very confusing. So in some places I had to kind of make decisions like this. I usually balance them out in other places, so you shouldn't think that I'm always making it easier for one group or the other. Overall, it balances out. Of course, there are famous pairs of words that are really hard. These are the false cognates, like, for example, the word for bread and the word for meat. As many of you may have heard about, the issue, the conflict over the name Bethlehem, whether is it the house of bread in Hebrew or the house of meat in Arabic. And so here what I do is I went for kind of highlighting the difference and just kind of using variations of the word. So it's almost like the masculine becomes the bread and the feminine becomes the meat, and we just go with that. So lahem and lahma are bread and meat in Semitish. And then there are cases where I just merge the words, take a word that's first half from one language, second half from the other one. And this is not Hebrew. This is actually bubala is from Yiddish, but it's also commonly used by Hebrew speakers, meaning sweetie or doll. And habub is a very nice kind of word, like han, beloved, sweetheart. So habubila is kind of like saying sweetie darling or honey bunch in Semitish. Other expressions that were constructed from components that look familiar, perhaps. So, shlonak in Bedouin Arabic, meaning how are you, and mashlomcha in Hebrew, meaning also how are you, gave me the mashlomka, is how are you in Semitish. And then there are other cases where all the different components are actually recognizable, possibly. So Yom Moled al Naim is also recognizable in both Arabic and Hebrew with the same meaning of pleasant. So day, birth, pleasant, happy birthday. It's again, combined from different elements, and hopefully speakers from both languages can see this and can make a reasonable guess of what it could mean. Now I'm gonna share with you two small texts that are written in Semitish, and I'm not gonna go through a language lesson. I'm just gonna read them and read the translation for them. One has a religious theme, which also again does mixing on multiple layers. So it's a prayer with Jewish, Christian, and Muslim elements to it, and it goes like this. Baruch atah Elohim, Abanu hal-bisamayin, Har-Rahman Har-Rahim, Melech Yom Haddin, Ilah Ahad Le'olamin, which translates as, Blessed you are Lord, our Father in the heavens, the most gracious, the most merciful, King of the day of judgment, one God of all the worlds. And the first line, for those who may not know, is very Jewish, very, a Jewish prayer style. The beginning of it, anyway. The second reference to the Father is obviously an homage to the Father's prayer in Christianity, and then the third line is from common Muslim invocations. And then the rest include themes that are also shared by all of the three religions. And then finally, the Song of Palisra. This is a bit of a kind of like the current national song, let's say, of Palisra. And although you could question whether or why is a national song making references to other countries in it. Well, let me read it first. So it says, أنا وتا نحن أخين لأرض كدوسا كلنا بنين من الأردن لهاليم للو إسرائيل للو فلسطين سمها بلسرا مدينة أحدا مبروكة من اللهين لهيا بسلام لهيا بلدين. You and I, we are brothers, children of a holy land, from the Jordan to the sea, not Israel, not Palestine. Her name is Palisra, one state, blessed by God, to live in peace without religion. So I was saying that it's a kind of definition by opposition at this point, and I don't like that very much right now. But it seemed as a song, it was something necessary to create at the time I created it. And often people ask me about the last two lines of "blessed by God to live without religion," and that is very intentional. In fact, this question of the holiness of the land and the role of religion in it, and the role of God in our life is obviously, you can imagine what my point of view is on that. Anyway, these are a couple of the pieces that I've written so far in Semitish directly, singing about Palisra or inspired by Palisra. So what next? Currently I'm working on completing the Introduction to Semitish book. It's about 80% finished. I will continue supporting the online presence of the State of Palisra, which I encourage you to come visit and like us, of course. And I would like to consider expanding participation by seeking and encouraging contributions by artists and inspired individuals. This may be some of you. If you feel like you have observations about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or cultures that you think people have not noticed, please share. If you want to create a piece, I'll be happy to publicize it through my website with your name on it. I'm interested in getting more people involved here. Also, if somebody's getting married and they want me to do, write them vows in Semitish or do a Semitish ceremony, that would be great fun to do also, or for whatever other ceremonies. Just kind of putting some ideas out there. I think it, a language is not life until we actually work with it and we give it life. And I would like to keep this language alive, or give it life, more life. Okay, so in this last slide, I am just showing you the links. Facebook is a State of Palisra page. There's also a palisra.com webpage. It's a bit older. The Facebook page is actually where most of my current work is. And you can always email me at nazar@palisra.com. And again, questions, feedback, comments. You can also, on the Facebook page, just send me messages through it. I'll be very happy to answer them. And thank you very much for all your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.